thousands of visitors are enjoying a carefree day out at Chester Zoo. But behind the scenes, the head keeper of carnivores, Alan Woodward, is at the centre of a life and death struggle. It concerns 2 male lion cubs that were born at the zoo just 48 hours ago.
I think the maternal behaviour just isn't there.
Yeah, she doesn't really know what she's meant to be doing.
No, she doesn't.
Alan and resident vet James Chatterton reluctantly intervened when it became clear that the cubs' mother, Asha, wasn't taking care of them.
If we leave them in there, I think they're going to die.
The decision to remove the cubs saved their lives, but it will be several more days before they are out of danger.
Not as bad.
James has made the cubs his top priority.
So it's been about 3 hours since I last saw them, so I've just come to see how they're getting on. The weak one is still a little bit weak. The stronger one seems to be taking the bottle feeding really well, so just come to reassess them really.
Since birth, they've been starved of their mother's milk, which has left them weak and open to infection. Alan recently began the bottle feeding.
The last milk feed they had multivitamins in there as well, about 4 drops of multivitamins. So they get that the first feed of every day, and then it's just the milk after that, really.
It's the start of a massive undertaking. The cubs will need feeding every 3 hours, day and night. And extra veterinary care will be required for the smaller cub because he's dehydrated and traces of blood have been found in his urine.
Basically, the urine's red coloured, and it was first thing this morning, it still is, and there can be a number of different reasons for that. That can be just some trauma from mum, you know, or it could be a sign of an infection. If it goes away quickly, I'll feel a lot happier about it. Whilst the red stays present in his urine, I remain concerned about him.
James gives the cub a full physical examination.
It's important we check around the umbilicus and make sure there's no sign of infection. This is a common route for infection to get into little babies through the umbilicus here, but that looks okay.
It's still a critical time, but James is encouraged by the cub's improvement in only a few hours.
Compared to first thing this morning, when we first examined the cub, we picked the skin up and let go, and it just stayed up there for a long time. Now it is going back. It's still maybe a little bit slower than you would want. It could be several hours before the dehydration is corrected fully, so we're early doors for that yet. And I think we're heading in the right direction as far as the hydration goes.
Until now, the weaker cub hasn't had the natural sucking reflex needed to feed successfully. But Alan is starting to see progress.
This cub, because it's the smallest, I mean, he is starting with a bit of a handicap, and he has got a lot more weight to put on than the other one, really. So, but he is getting stronger, and this is the first time he's actually started to suck on his own, which is great news, really.
The stronger cub has been feeding well, with inevitable consequences.
This is some of the meconium coming through now. What usually passes through first of all. You do the front part first, then do the back part later. Yeah. It's past loads.
Yeah, good. So they're not out of the woods yet. We've still got one poorly and one very poorly cub, you know.
Well, I'll keep an eye on the small one, and we saw a slight improvement in it this time, so hopefully the next time will be even better, really.
I shall have fingers and toes and everything crossed.
Okay, right.
I shall see it in a day or two. Okay.
Okay, thanks for your help.
Thanks,
anyway.
Sam.
Okay.
James will be on call whenever he's needed. But from now on, it's Alan who will play mum to the cubs and spend 24 hours a day with them.
We've all got quite a lot of work in front of us, and it's our job now to make sure the cubs survive, well, as much as we can do as possible anyway.
It's a job he's done before, so he knows he's in for some sleepless nights.
I'm not too good at interrupted sleep. I usually need quite a lot of sleep. I'm usually quite grouchy, so everybody be on their toes the next couple of weeks, I think.
The hard graft starts here. Alan is due a day off, but from now on, everywhere he goes, the cubs go too. He heads home early to get them settled in and to give them another feed before bedtime. It could be a long night. It's a big day for the baby Humboldt penguins. Last month, they were being reared in a nursery pool, separated from the adults in the main pool.
So many other penguins there that they find it really difficult to compete for fish.
At that stage, two of the youngest, Magenta and Jet, were still being hand-fed. Now, all the babies have made great progress, and keeper Claire Rafe is giving them what may be their last feed in the nursery pool.
Today we're going to release the penguins. Because, as you can see, they're all feeding quite happily by themselves. We'll be opening the gate and letting them go onto the main pool with the others. And now, once they've started taking the fish from the water, it's pretty much that we don't hand feed them. But it is quite tempting when they waddle up to you for a little fish, but you have to be quite strict. The penguins are quite keen. I think they're going to go out quite quickly. But my boss isn't so sure. We'll see, because they could be a little bit shy.
Right on cue, the boss arrives. Head keeper Andy Woolham.
Right, it's time for you chaps to go into the main pool. Let's get this gate open for you. The chances are they'll sit there and do nothing at all. They'll look at the gate, and then when it's a bit quieter later, they might wander through. I think they'll be out tomorrow morning, to be honest. I think they should be out. Should be. But it's entirely up to them.
It's a big leap from the nursery area to the main pool, and the youngsters are none too sure about it.
They're having a look at the gate. It's all about their confidence, really. If they feel confidence as to what's on the other side, they'll be away.
Jet, with the green tags, and Magenta, with the orange tags, are curious about what lies outside their enclosure. But they're too scared to go and investigate.
Go on. Like the penguin whisperer.
As the afternoon draws to an end, it looks as if Andy's prediction is right. Even the boldest penguin bottles out, and Claire's lost the bet with her boss.
He just thought that they wouldn't do anything, which has been proved right, which is a bit of a pain, really.
Claire will be back later to see if they stay or go. On Lemur Island, the hungry residents are tucking in to dinner with their usual enthusiasm. All, that is, except one. Larry the lemur has been taken to the Animal Health Centre because he's lost his appetite. And that almost certainly means there's something seriously wrong with him. James has arrived to examine him, but first he'll have to be given an anaesthetic.
Some species would be able to examine and maybe treat without having to anaesthetise first. Unfortunately, with this little guy, the majority of that we can't do with him awake.
Back on Lemur Island, head keeper Andy Lenihan is carrying on with the daily routine, but he can't hide his concern for Larry.
We get hardly any illnesses with any of the primates, really, not just the lemurs, but we don't see the vets very often, just mainly fight wounds, things like that, or if we're implanting females, for instance, to stop them breeding. It is very unusual for a lemur of any kind here at Chester to take ill, but because they're such small animals, you've got to catch it pretty quick because they go down quite rapidly, you see.
Veterinary nurses Karen Homer and Tanya Kernow helped to anaesthetise Larry.
You're happy?
So
Yeah.
gas is off. He's anaesthetised. We've got the tube into his trachea, into his windpipe. That's how we administer the anaesthetic and the oxygen.
Once he's asleep, James intends to take x-rays of his digestive system.
Happy?
Yep.
Everyone out?
Yep.
The x-rays will show if there are any obstructions in his stomach.
Done.
While Larry's still asleep, they give him antibiotics and take a blood sample.
We're going to send that off to the laboratory and get that tested for a whole range of different things. And that'll give us an idea of how his liver and his kidneys and lots of other things are doing.
Then James rehydrates him.
We're giving him some fluids under his skin. It's not as good as putting him on a drip, but obviously This guy, when he's awake, wouldn't tolerate a drip being in place.
The final task is to examine the X-rays.
There's not as much food matter in his intestines as I would normally see, and there's a lot of gas and a little bit of fluid. So it'll be interesting to see what he does now he's confined, what he does overnight, whether he eats, whether there's any vomiting, whether there's any diarrhoea, and that combined with the results from the blood sample that we took will give us a lot more information as to what's going on with him.
Karen and Tanya watch over Larry as he comes round from the anaesthetic.
He says, I'm feeling a little bit hungover, but not too bad.
Once he's fully awake, he's taken back to Lemur Island, to an enclosure where he can see the others, but recover on his own.
We've then got his favourite foods inside his enclosure, so we're going to try and tempt him to start eating. The next sort of 24, 48 hours are going to be crucial, really, to see how he responds to the treatment.
It's early morning at Chester Zoo, and the baby penguins have had over 12 hours to move from the nursery pool to the adults' enclosure.
Morning, little one.
Keeper Claire Rafe has come to see how many of them have plucked up the courage to go.
Still at least 2 that haven't decided to go out. You're a bit scared? Yeah. Just having a quick check to see if there's any others hiding in boxes or under pamperses or anything. Oh, there is. Who are you? Oh, okay, cover you back up. I think by the looks of it, the 2 youngest ones, the double green and the double orange, have actually gone out. So I'll head off now and try and search for them. There's 2 there.
At the big pool, the first baby Claire sees is magenta with the orange tags.
He's obviously found his feet and he's quite happy and confident to be out with the others. But I'll have a look for the other ones. They must be around somewhere. There's 3 babies there at the moment, and then there were 3 on the nursery pool. So there's another 4 to find somewhere. But that one there, perfectly shown, is the double green one, which was one of the babies, the one that was sort of the most confident at having a bit of a look out yesterday afternoon.
Jet seems to be at home among the adults.
And that one there is the double black one. So I think that's all 10 of them seen. That is a brilliant result. To see them all go and be, you know, sort of teenage penguins and be out with the others and mixing well, it is really, it's kind of makes the job worthwhile. At 8 o'clock in the morning when you get rained on and everything, it makes it worthwhile.
But Claire's work isn't finished. The youngsters need to learn to catch their fish in the face of fierce competition from the adults.
Come on, little ones. Okay. Go on, if you watch them, they're doing it. Learn from the adults. That's it. Well done, clever penguin.
But some obviously need more practice. In the nursery pool, there are 3 babies still to go.
Hopefully, because it's just down to 3 of them, they'll start to sort of go looking for the others, and if they see the others maybe wandering around, it might encourage them to go out. I think they're a bit cowardy, to be honest. Bit of a big girl, aren't you?
A few miles from the zoo, head keeper Alan Woodward has a day off. But it's not going to be a day of rest.
I'm feeling a bit frazzled today because I haven't had much sleep, but you get used to it. You get used to it after a while anyway.
Alan is playing mum to 2 two-day-old lion cubs. And like any new parent, he's under enormous stress.
I think the first night is one of the critical nights, really, but obviously the longer you go, the more out of the danger zone you are.
24 hours ago, the cubs were dehydrated and close to death. Taking them away from their mother was a gamble, but already Alan is seeing signs that it's working.
This is the bigger of the 2. He was the stronger one. These are brilliant signs. I mean, he's come on in leaps and bounds since yesterday. And it's important not to overload this system. I mean, that's why we start with small amounts, then as they drink more, we increase the amount they have. But at this stage, it's just small amounts on a regular basis, really. This is the smaller one. This is the one that we nearly found dead yesterday. And you see just how much livelier he is now. I mean, I'd say that's about 100% improvement from yesterday. This one did have a problem with suckling, but he's picking it up now. He's taken the bottle quite well, really, once he gets used to it. Sometimes, like in litters, you do get what we call the runt, and I think he is a bit of a runt. But hopefully he'll catch up. It's very exhausting. It's never easy hand-rearing an animal, but it's a huge achievement, and it's certainly worthwhile. I mean, when you see the end results and everything's going fine. I mean, it's a huge responsibility as well, but if we can rear these cubs, I mean, it'll be a great achievement, really.
It will be several more days before the cubs are fully out of danger. Several more days before Alan will discover if all his hard work will pay off. Chester's Sulawesi macaques are in for a treat, courtesy of senior keeper of primates, Jason Boyer. But he's going to make sure they work for it.
We've got apricot, bit of pineapple. There's also apples, bananas, pears, oranges. So they get quite a varied diet. In this job, a good head for height comes in handy because monkeys do like to play around in the trees naturally, so obviously we need to get to the areas that they want to be in. They're a lot better at it than I am.
Jason climbs to the roof to ride on a special trolley. It enables him to move quickly from one end of the enclosure to the other, feeding the macaques at treetop level.
The younger and smaller animals tend to get the majority of the food because they're that much more agile and nimble, and whereas the dominant, heavier animals aren't able to move around as quickly or as well at that height.
It's a tactic that ensures fair shares for all.
If I was to feed them on the ground, although we spread the food out as much as we can do, the dominant animals tend to sort of like bully their way into getting the nicer bits of food. This way, at least a few times a week, the subordinate animals tend to get to the nicer bits first.
By the time Jason's back on the ground, the macaques have polished off every last morsel. Back at the penguin pool, Keeper Claire is delighted with her 10 young protégés. Now all of them have graduated to the main pool and learned to fend for themselves.
As you can see, the baby penguins, the ones with the tags on, are mixing really well with the group now, and you can actually see Jet and Magenta, the two youngest, the double green and double orange tag. But yeah, just to see them go out and to mix well with the rest of the group is fantastic. Makes the smell of fish worthwhile.
Head keeper Andy Lenihan is heading back to Lemur Island to feed the colony and to visit Larry, the lemur who was taken ill yesterday.
They like the food, the lemurs. They've got quite a sweet tooth. I mean, when you feed them all, they just dive on the food, and if one's not doing that, then that's quite unusual. Either the group won't let him feed, or he doesn't want to eat, which is what it was in Larry's case. So. We've got Larry inside here at the moment. I'm not going to do much with him today, just checking that he's all right and giving him some food, really. His eyes are droopy, his ears are droopy, his posture's sort of low to the ground. He just doesn't look like a totally healthy lemur at the moment. We like bananas actually, but he was slightly dehydrated yesterday, so he's probably going to prefer eating a couple of grapes. We had to separate him, not only to do some tests on him, but also so we could get a bit of food down him and monitor exactly what he's eating. When you separate an animal like this from a group, it's very hard to put them back in the group sometimes. If they don't accept him, they'll just attack him, and they don't stop, they're relentless. So you then have to remove him, and he goes on a list of surplus animals, and he'll probably go to another zoo. I think the vets are going to come and see him again tomorrow, see if he's improved at all, and if he hasn't, maybe give him another antibiotic injection. But really we're awaiting his test results to sort of pinpoint what exactly is wrong with him.